The Syrian city of Aleppo has again become this flashpoint of escalating violence. And let's dissect what all we have at play for the viewers. Who controls what region? What is the Kurdish force essentially meaning here? What does the Turkish, and their role have to do with any of this? And of course, the Russian influence. Has that died down with Aleppo's assault? Let's break that down for the viewers as well. Now, the surprise offensive by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, also known as HTS, and pro-Turkish forces, it has delivered a strategic blow to the Assad regime, needless to say, capturing large portions of Aleppo and the rural areas of Hama in the places nearby as well, not just Aleppo, Idlib and Hama, several other rural areas as well. And this shift in the territorial control has reignited Syria's civil war, raising questions about its impact on regional and global players, needless to say. Humanitarian catastrophe continues to widen. The offensive has left 446 people dead and thousands displaced. Russian and Syrian airstrikes have targeted civilian areas, including hospitals, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. And Aleppo residents, they're reporting curfews at the hands of these rebels, several home raids and detentions, which is why thousands are now leaving Aleppo and Idlib altogether. All of this under the new rebel administration that called out its control over just this weekend. Now, why Aleppo is crucial? It's important to take a look at that. Aleppo is not just Syria's second largest city. It's a pivotal economic and strategic hub. Whoever controls Aleppo controls vital trade routes and gains significant leverage in the broader geopolitical game. It captures, it symbolizes momentum, needless to say, in this conflict, turning it into a prize. Aleppo city that resonates far beyond Syria's borders. But to understand who controls what in Syria, let's take a look at that as well, ladies and gentlemen. You've got the HTS and the allies. They essentially command Aleppo and parts of Idlib and Hama, consolidating power in the north. Then you have the Assad regime, which is backed by Russia and Iran. It dominates Damascus, central provinces, and southern Syria. Then you've got the Kurdish-led SDF, supported by the United States. It holds the northeastern Syria portion, where oil resources, mind you, bolster their autonomy. You've got the Turkey and allies up in the north. They secure the northern border zones as buffer areas to counter Kurdish influence, especially from the Turkish point of view. And then you have the ISIS remnants that operate from desert hideouts, staging sporadic attacks. The little red portions right at the bottom is the opposition in Syria. This is what Syria looks like at this point in time. Now, Turkey's calculus looks like this. They're seeking an opportunity to expand influence in northern Syria, counter Kurdish forces it deems a terrorist threat, stabilize the border by creating a safe zone to manage the refugee crisis with 3.6 million Syrian refugees already within its border. You've got the Russian gamble as well, because for Russia, Aleppo's loss threatens years of investment in propping up Assad's regime. Moscow's military intervention since 2015 transformed the Syrian war, cementing its power in West Asia. However, setbacks like these erode its credibility as a stabilizer and weaken its strategic presence in the region. Then, of course, ladies and gentlemen, and to the viewers and my esteemed panelists as well, you've got a regional fallout, a weak ceasefire. The conflict in Syria unfolds alongside this growing instability in Lebanon, where a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah forces have, of course, escalated violations. The interconnected strife underscores the volatility across not just simply one region, or Gaza, or Lebanon, but the entirety of West Asia. Now, Aleppo's fall reshapes Syria's civil war as well and alters regional dynamics. Will it deepen fractures or open pathways to broader geopolitical realignments? Let's continue to dissect these with Dr. Zakir Hussain, Middle East expert, continues to be with us, and Major General Ashwini Sivach. Always a pleasure to have you with us. First to you, Dr. Hussain. What's at play? Who's to blame here? Who's got more to lose, more to win? Is it the Turkish forces? Is it Russia? Can you break that down for our viewers here? Why Aleppo is so crucial and important?
The blame goes to Turkey. It's too ambitious. It intervened in a fresh way because this was visible when second Arab Islamic summit was taking place. When Bashar al-Assad started talking, Erdogan left the meeting, and that was the signal that he is going to take action. But to me, that Turkey is not going to win the war, according to his agenda, because this is going to be another long drawn war, and the region and the Syrians are going to suffer more. and all the forces will jump in and already jumped in, and Syria will again suffer the same kind of thing which is started suffering since 2011 to 2016. To me, that this time they feel that Hamas is being weakened, weakened, Hezbollah is weakened, Iran is being neutralized, so there is no support for Syria, Bashar al-Assad. So this is the golden time to jump and topple the government of Bashar al-Assad. But this is not going to happen very soon because Russia is there. Again, the forces from Iraq is entering into Syria.
Right.
Iran is not. Well, the blood, the cost will be, pain will be high to the Iranian and others, but the war is not going to end soon. It is a total war
Many
type of
political
situation.
analysts
Is it?
and many geopolitical
Yeah,
experts out there, Dr.
yeah,
Hussain, are of the opinion that the war hasn't even begun yet. Let me rephrase
yeah,
this for you.
yeah.
Could the Aleppo offensive forge a new international order of the major stakeholders that are at play in Syria? Of all the names that you've already taken, according to their weaknesses and strengths, is the international order in Syria going to change now?
How the major issue is that how the Trump administration is going to intervene in the situation, that will decide more, because on one hand Trump says that he is not going to wage war, he is going to end war, but on the other hand the situation is becoming quite volatile in the last 1 week, and today President elect Trump has issued a warning against Hamas. That shows that if he is going to mess in the Middle East, he is not going to achieve his objective. So what I feel that the local militias will decide the situation ground, and Russia will continue to support. And what will happen in the coming months and years, it has to be seen, because nothing is going to come out from this imbroglio.
All right.
So,
Well, you know
yeah.
what? Interestingly, you've got the head of Syria's main opposition abroad, and General, do pay attention to this as well. He says Syrian rebel fighters began preparations to seize Aleppo a year ago, but the operation was delayed because of the war in Gaza and ultimately launched last week when the ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel took place. Listen in.
A year ago, they started really training and mobilizing and taking it more seriously. And it was supposed to happen, according. If you ask any kid in in the area in Azaz or in Jarablus, ask him, he'll tell you, yeah, we are going to go and free Aleppo. And this is like 6 months ago. But the operation was delayed to the crisis in the area, and especially at the end due to the Lebanese, the Israeli-Lebanese war, where the people and commanders on the ground, they saw it's not good to have it while there is a war in Lebanon. So the moment there were a ceasefire in Lebanon, they found that the opportunity is good for them to start.
Well, take a look at that, General. You've got the opposition leader in Syria stating that it was the timing of the ceasefire that led to the rebels entering Aleppo. And it wasn't a question of if, but it was a question of when. They were in preparation about 12 months back as well.
Yeah, very correct, Kabir. But then you have to see a larger picture also. You see, the point today is that who is backing Syria? That today Syria is backed by Russia and Iran. And now, what is their position as far as Russia is concerned? They are involved in a war with basically NATO country along with Ukraine. And so is the Iran. Iran attention is also diverted toward Israel, and also it is looking after its all three proxy, Hezbollah, Houthi, and Hamas. Now, this was a time which they were waiting for it when they found that al-Assad will be weak because he's not able to get a support from Russia and Iran. And that is why possibly they were waiting for last 1 year, they were building up. And this Aleppo is a very important town, because remember, this Aleppo was once upon a time was with rebels. In 2016, the Syrian forces have taken it back. Now they were waiting for it because this makes a lot of difference in Syria. It's the economic hub center, financial capital. In case it comes into the hands of the rebels, this gives them a platform for further move into Syria. So the point today is, of course, there is no doubt it why this time has been selected. One is, of course, Lebanon, the peace talk has taken place, but at the same time, it was that the two main main countries which were supporting Syria, they are weak now. Their attention is diverted somewhere else, and that's why
Let me
the
pick up on
rebels
that,
are
General.
supported
Let me
by.
pick up on that. Let me pick up on that. What does the fall of Aleppo signify for Russia's military, and its strategy and its foothold in Syria and beyond? I mean, that certainly hurt. I remember Prigozhin. Syria was sort of like a training boot camp area for Prigozhin and his mercenaries, and of course, that is now died out. Aleppo's assault and the implications on Putin.
Aleppo is very important for Russia. No doubt that it has invested in Aleppo. There are certain industries also, military industry there. It's an economic hub center. Investment of Russia has also gone in Aleppo. So therefore, Russia will not let it go like this. And that's why you find the Russian Air Force is now basically bombarding those areas which are held by the rebels. They are trying their best, and it is not only Aleppo, Idlib also. So the point today is that the US and the Turkey, which are supporting these rebels, along with the Israel and Saudi and UAE, the situation is very, very complex. But the point is, it is something like a mini world war. But certainly one thing is very clear: the Russia attention may be diverted toward Ukraine, but Russia is still not weak. Russia will support Syria, and Syrian forces, along with the air power of Russia, they will bounce back in Aleppo. It seemingly looks like that, and also that the Iran will also send some sort of help to the Syrian government. So the time will only tell what will be the fate, but the situation is quite critical, and it is a civil war type of thing which can flare up in West Asia. And you find that somewhere the peace was coming up in Lebanon, that there was a talk between Lebanon and Israel. Maybe something will build up between Israel and Hamas, but at the same time, you find that Syria is getting reactivated what it was in 2016. There was a lull period from 2016 till
Yep.
2024. All of a sudden, you
I'll
find
tell you
it
what
flared
social
up.
media is flooded with right now. Social media says they've stopped a war somewhere, there's a ceasefire somewhere, and then a new front has been opened on the other front. Dr. Hussain, take a look at this. You've got the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, who said just yesterday that Iran will do whatever it can to establish security and peace for the territorial integrity of all countries, without specifying, of course, which country he was referring to. Listen in to what Pezeshkian had to say.
The territorial integrity of all countries is respected, and we must not allow the territorial integrity of any country to be violated under any pretext. As a result, we will do whatever is within our power, offering any assistance necessary to establish security and peace and to combat terrorism.
Now, Dr. Hussain, it seems to be this is a battle of the stooges. We had, our panelist yesterday on the show telling us that some militias are CIA backed, some militias are Pentagon backed. You've got all these stooges at play over here. What do you make of Pezeshkian's latest reaction?
Before that, I also want to add today there is an article in Foreign Affairs of Jawad Zarif. He said that uh, Iran is ready to accept whatever is good for Palestinian. It means that if any agreement is good for Palestinians, it will also accept. So both these things are saying that Iran is not going to leave its allies, and as well as at the same time, Iran is not going to become a roadblock in any sort of agreement. Here, what I feel that I want to highlight here, the role of Turkey is very dubious because the Turkey has fallen from the list of America and European
The territorial
countries
integrity
as
of
it
all
has
countries.
sided Russia and other places. So it is trying to re-emerge, re-win their faith in Trump's regime. That's why it is trying to do all these things. And I feel that Turkey is the most isolated and vulnerable country in this region. And the situation shows that they are not going to win the war immediately. It will be a long drawn, and ultimately, these rebel forces will be pushed inside Turkey. And Turkey is going to suffer a lot because Erdogan has a short sighted policy. It has not taken side of anyone. The best policy for Turkey was to side align with Russia at that time, but it ignored. Neither it went fully to United States because Israel does not want Turkey to be a very powerful region country in the region. So Turkey is caught into that, and this all game has been orchestrated by Erdogan to gain again the goodwill of Trump. So what I find that the this situation has become a total war-like situation, and nothing can be said right now. But at the same time, we also find that the
Okay.
Iran, Russia, and even the militia from Yemen who have prepared 1 lakh fighters may enter Syria. And they were planning to enter from via Syria to Lebanon and from there to other part of the Palestinian controlled region. So, but this ceasefire has stopped all these things, and it has given opportunity to Israel, US West, Saudi Arabia to deal these resistance forces block by block, and everybody has blessing to Turkey to carry forward this. But I feel that this is will be very catastrophic for the citizen of the Syria, because already 600,000 people are dead, 12 million people are displaced, and Syria has shambled in a very deep crisis. So again, next Gaza is going to become some part of Syria.
Well, all right, all right. Many thanks for those comments, Dr. Hussain. Of course, you're right. Iraq, Lebanon, of course, Hezbollah, because of that ceasefire, not actively participating in this one at this point in time. But the jets from, Russia helping out the Bashar al-Assad regime. You've got Turkish forces that are now rebuffing the rebels right up there on the north. You're right. There are a lot of stakeholders here. It's going to be too soon to say what's going to happen out next. But, General, even as we wrap this segment out, we're going to continue to talk about this every day on News9. But even as we wrap this segment, what next for Bashar al-Assad, General? Because we've heard it time and again that his strategy is to withdraw, regroup, fortify, and then come back with that counteroffensive. But how big and how long will that counteroffensive be? People are also talking about a chemical warfare and how the international community is going to look at it.
Kabir, Assad can go to any extent. He has to remain in power. He's been in power from 2000 onwards, and he's being supported by Russia as well as Iran. Iran has also pushed Hezbollah earlier in Syria. So the point today is that so far Russia is supporting him. Russian forces are using air power. He may be weak, but he's not out. So I suppose that what will happen is the Syria will bounce back. It will try to take back Aleppo. And let's see, the time will tell. But the whole situation has become very volatile and very rightly brought out. Turkey is very dubious. At one point of time, it is with US. At one point of time, it is with Russia. And, as far as why he's doing that, he obviously want to win the confidence of Trump. He's a part of NATO, but not part of European Union. At the same time, he want to become a Khalifa of the Muslim world. But what will happen and how things will shape up, will he able to do that? The time will tell. But as on today, the Syrian episode shows the situation has become very volatile. The actors and characters in Syria is far, far larger than Israel, Hamas, or Israel, Lebanon, or Israel, Iran. So therefore, the thing is, in this number of actors and characters involved, US is involved, Russia is involved, Israel,
Right.
Saudi, UAE is involved, Turkey is involved. So it's a complex situation. It becomes, if the situation go out of hand, it is where we are sitting on a volcano. When you find things will erupted and it can start into a larger conflict in West Asia.
No, you're absolutely right, General. And, many thanks for joining us, General. Always a pleasure to have you with us here on News9. The same goes for Dr. Hussain as well. But as the battle for Aleppo continues to reshape the dynamics, and let's put that graphic out there on the screens as well, the map of Syria as to who controls what, even as the battle for Aleppo continues to reshape the dynamics of the Syrian conflict, you've got the involvement of major players like Turkey, Russia, Iran, and all of this is only heightening the stakes. The shifting control of key areas, including Aleppo, of course, signals a potential reconfiguration of the alliances and the territorial influence. With humanitarian toll mounting and geopolitical tensions rising, the situation remains critical. You've got the aftermath visuals that we're seeing from Syria, from Aleppo, from Idlib. We'll try to put that out on the screen as well, as both regional and international powers recalibrate their strategies. The coming months and days will be pivotal in determining the future of Syria and the wider West Asian region. Before we wrap this segment up, you've got the United States' Department, Secretary that said on the 2nd of December that it wants to see a political process to end Syria's civil war. But how long will it take, and does it ever play out and pan out like that? We'll have to wait and find out. Matthew Miller on your screens next.
Nothing has changed with respect to our policy. Assad is a brutal dictator with blood on his hands, the blood of innocent civilians inside Syria, blood of his own people on his hands. Ultimately, what we want to see is a political process forward where the Syrian people get to determine who their leaders are. As I said, United Nations Security Council Resolution 2254 called for such a process. The Syrian government has never participated in that process. We continue to call on them to do so. We continue to call on all countries to use their influence to push forward that kind of political process that would lead to a path forward for the Syrian people, where the regime engages with opposition groups. We also believe it would be helpful if Russia and Iran stopped their destabilizing influence inside Syria. We have seen them continue to destabilize the situation going back more than a decade now, continue to play a role that is unhelpful not just to the Syrian people but to the broader region.
Well, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a very delicate ceasefire that's taken place between Hezbollah and Lebanon as well. And I'll tell you what's happening on the ground. You've got residents of southern Lebanon that are now reporting facing Israeli gunfire whilst attempting to bury the dead or inspect their destroyed and damaged homes. And all of this, despite that US brokered ceasefire deal. Israeli military has ordered residents from dozens of towns not to return back. The ceasefire does not include any restrictions on residents or establishing a buffer zone of sorts. Here's a complete report of what's happening. Take a look.
Abbas al-Tanouk says he's been left with injuries and questions after trying to bury a dead cousin at the family graveyard in southern Lebanon, just days after a ceasefire between Israel and armed group Hezbollah came into effect. We just needed 30 minutes, he says, but we were surprised when Israeli tanks encircled us, and that's when the gunfire started. Sprays of gunfire are heard in this shaky cell phone video filmed by Tanouk last Friday. Why did we go back? Because there's a ceasefire. That reassures you, he says, adding that he cleared his movements with the Lebanese army and the UN peacekeeping force there. What more did we need, he asks. The ceasefire calls for an end to fighting so residents on both sides of the border can go home. Tanouk says he got hurt as he and other relatives fled to a checkpoint operated by Lebanese troops, and that the family was fired on a second time when they tried to go back to the graveyard. The Israeli military did not immediately respond to requests for comment. At this cemetery in Tyre, where people killed in the conflict were temporarily buried, graves are being dug up so the bodies can be taken to their hometowns and villages for funerals. Israeli troops are still in Lebanese territory, and its military has issued orders to residents of 60 southern Lebanese towns, prohibiting them from going home until further notice. Tanouk's ordeal highlights the confusion for some who are trying to do that. The U.S. brokered ceasefire deal grants both Lebanon and Israel the right to self-defense, but does not include details about a buffer zone or restrictions on residents.
We were asking, how is this a ceasefire? How is this a deal? We were surprised. It's our right as residents of the South to go back to our villages. It's a halt to the hostilities, and it is a natural right for a son of the South to go to his house. That's normal. Just like the settlers going to his house, I have the right to go to my house.
Both sides have accused each other of breaking the 60-day ceasefire. In Lebanon, some of the 1.2 million people who fled during fighting have been able to return home, albeit to vast destruction. Not Mustafa Ibrahim al-Sayed, a father of 12. He wants to go back to Beit Leaf, which is just over a mile from the border, but is still living in this displacement shelter.
I
went there 2 days ago. I went alone. It is all destruction there. As soon as I arrived, there were 2 shells around the town, and I got a message on my phone that our town is within the area we can't go to. So I picked up my stuff and came back here. We fled.
Sayed is working on an agricultural project for displaced people, but says he dreams of returning home. I hope we go back to our town so we can get peace of mind, he says.